What's going on, world? My name is Mazi Mutafa, Executive Director of Words, Beats, and Life, and I'm super happy to have you here for day 2 of week number 3 of the Words, Beats, and Life Festival, the 5th annual. This week is called the Like a Boss Symposium. We're actually bringing on creative entrepreneurs from all over the DMV and beyond to be able to talk about how they've made careers as artists. Today, we have 3 amazing musicians who are super amazing. They make great music. They're great collaborators, and I'm very excited to be able to introduce them each one by one. Coming first to the stage, we've got that guy you just saw in the preview who's going to be a part of a concert series next week. He's from the area. His name is Substantial.
Peace. What's going on, family?
Coming next to the stage, we've got that other guy. He used to be known as that dude with an orchestra. We just call him Mr. Shmoody these days.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on?
Peace.
And last but not least, this guy goes by several names. Today, he's actually going by his government. I personally still like to call him Damu, the Fudgemunk, but he's going by Earl Davis today. What's going on, Earl?
Peace, everyone. Peace, Mazi. Peace, Substantial. Peace, Shmoody. Peace, everyone out there in Streamland.
No doubt. We've already got our first comment just saying they're excited for this one. We've got Jordan Rivers checking in. Thanks so much for tuning in, Jordan. So the topic of today, actually, before we get to the topic, I'm actually taking for granted that because all of y'all are celebrities, everybody wants to know. Why don't we do this? Why don't each of you introduce yourself? We can do it in reverse order. So Earl, could you just tell people who you are, what you've done recently that you're most proud of? And how you got into music? Those are the 3 questions to kick us off.
My name is Earl Davis, aka Damu, Fudgemunk. Born and raised Washington, D.C. Been here all my life and still live in the district. And I'm a DJ, producer, or hip hop musician, so to speak. I love music. I got started probably in my mid to late adolescent years and started out rhyming, and then that led to DJing and graffiti and just, chasing the hip hop culture. And towards my 20s is when I actually started pursuing my music career. And at that particular time, I was shopping for labels and trying to land deals. And after a lot of rejection and the industry changing, the climate changing over the years, it led me to become an entrepreneur and forced me to create my own channel and partner, meet my business partner, and start a hip hop label. So
that's what's up. Thank you so much. Mr. Shmoody, who are you?
Where am I?
Who are you?
Who am I?
Those same questions.
So my name is Mr. Shmoody. My real name is Marcus Shmoody. I just started going with Mr. Shmoody recently, so I would appreciate it if the world could catch on, I know it's difficult. Big changes going on already. But I'm a musician, composer. Taught myself how to conduct when I started the orchestra, kind of like Damu. I was brought up in the orchestra, and I wanted to move that into, and like all those lessons into more of the hip hop R&B stuff that I wanted to make. There really wasn't a space to do it, so I just kind of did it myself and had to teach myself everything along the way. And it was a crazy couple of years. It's still going, but it's about to make a big change. So I'm happy to talk about that too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Substantial, last but not least.
Yes. All right. Peace. As he said, my name is Substantial. I am MC, producer, visual artist, black of all trades. I've been making music. I think I cut my first demo when I was like 14. I was born and raised in the DMV, specifically PG County, Maryland. And I guess, man, over the years, I've, started with rhyming and producing. And then as I finally started to do it professionally, when I got my start with the label called Hideout Productions, which was owned by the late great Nujabes, brother who did the music for Samurai Champloo. As other opportunities started to kind of happen, it led to me doing a lot of consulting and also using my visual art skill as well, because I'm a Sutla High School graduate. So, you know, I went to Suitland for visual art, later Pratt Institute for graphic design. So I've just always kind of used all of my skills together to kind of create my art, which ultimately led to me starting a company with my wife called Substantial Art and Music, where we consult other different types of creative entrepreneurs and just show them how to tap into their various skill sets to better monetize what they do and make a living.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. For those of you just tuning in, this is a conversation with Earl, Mr. Shmoody, and Substantial about how they really got into music, and even beyond that, their roles in the world as creative people. And we decided to create this series really for young people that are in high school or in college or getting ready to graduate, who are really trying to figure out what they're going to do next. You know, this idea that we don't necessarily live in a world where everybody is looking for a job. Some of us are going to work to create our own jobs. And there are ups and downs, and there are benefits and challenges with that decision. But I wonder, could each of you talk a little bit, because you talked about being self-trained to a degree, but also being a part of creative communities that nurtured your creativity. Can each of you talk a little bit about your own journey as creative entrepreneurs, how you really got into this idea of seeing your creativity as a road towards being able to provide for yourself and your family? Substantial.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to step on any toes. Yeah, man. It you know, from the time I cut my first demo, you know, like things kind of escalated really quick. Where I was just talking to different, you know, like over like a 5 or 6 year span from the time I cut my first demo, I probably ended up in talks with like maybe at least 3 or 4 major labels. And the last one was Def Jam before I linked with Hideout. And so I just noticed like how those conversations would go from a very young age to as I got older, like being in a situation where I was still trying to figure out who I was as a person, but then also who I was as an artist, and how those things either were one and the same, or how they would you know, kind of coexist, so to speak. And so, you know, dealing with these larger companies, oftentimes they're trying to tell you who you are or tell you who you need to be in order to be successful, in order to keep people interested. And so, you know, I've always been a very strong-minded person, so that wasn't sitting very well with me. So I passed on a lot of the opportunities. And eventually, as I mentioned before, when I linked with Hideout Productions, you know, they very much wanted me for me. You know what I mean? You know, talking about the types of things I was talking about, and not necessarily trying to change my image. So that freedom, I learned very early on that freedom was extremely important to my development as an artist, but more importantly as a human being. And you know, because at the end of the day, I learned very early on that this music that we were creating was going to ultimately outlive us. And so I just wanted to, and it was not just a reflection of myself, it was also a reflection of my family, the people who raised me, and all of that, and ultimately was going to turn into something that could take care of my family. So being able to kind of control that vision, control my, you know, what my art look or sound like, was extremely important. So, you know, but I knew that that meant that I was likely going to have to leave a lot of money on the table. So ultimately, I had to figure out other creative ways to monetize what I did and create other opportunities, and spent a lot of time in spaces where I didn't see a lot of rappers. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like if something was, sometimes people see everything happening in a particular area and feel like they all got to rush there and do the same thing in order to get where they're trying to be. And I learned very early on that, you know, I spent a lot of time with different types of musicians who didn't necessarily rap, but appreciated rap as a form of music. And that allowed me to kind of create some unique opportunities in different spaces where not a lot of rappers were. So, you know. I guess I'll pass Mike I don't know. I don't know you very well. Okay, go ahead, Damu.
To echo what you were saying, I mean, I really, the reason I didn't have much to say after that is because it's pretty parallel to my journey.
Yeah.
And just a lot of the things that you touch on, I was just sitting there amening to myself with everything you said. I could relate to a lot of your experiences, and also just some of the things that drive you as far as telling your story, your legacy, you know, as an individual, and also the components and the spirits that molded us, you know, to get to this space. And yeah, as far as like staying true to yourself and not compromising your integrity, and it all starts from being passionate and being creatively driven, and then eventually you can expand and on top of that, once you've actually discovered your purpose, to say, okay, this actually can be a career. And I think, you know, depending on how people discover these things, you know, everyone isn't the same, but I guess for myself, when I got involved into music, it was all about the art. It was all about being creative. And even now, it's all about having unlimited access to my creativity. Although it is something that I have to pay my bills with, and I do have to live and budget and do all the real life things that go along to, I guess, coexist, as you said, with my creativity. But from the very core of it, it's about being inspired. And now it's like, I guess, having a business to support that is really the where it becomes stressful, because and what I mean by stressful, let me just elaborate on that. Not stressful in the sense that you don't enjoy it, but it's more that you love your passion so much, you're willing to do what you have to do to stay in that space, because that is your plan A and your plan Z. It's 100% your plan. So you know, at the end of the day, really just being creative is what drives me. And yeah, I mean, just to echo on what everything that you said, it's spot on as far as how I got involved.
It's cool being like, because I feel like I'm at that point where I'm starting to. Well, I am building it. Just started my LLC in April. So like, I definitely have questions about like distribution and stuff, because like I'm not planning on putting any of my songs on DSPs or for the most part. I mean, I might drop a teaser or something like that, but like looking at the math in terms of revenue from Spotify, from all those digital streaming platforms, for those who don't know, Spotify, Apple Music now, Tidal, all that. I think the last time I looked, it was like you make $1 for every 620 something streams, minus 70%. And then you have to factor in the fact that in most of those digital streaming platforms, your ratio is always out of the whole. So every single day, the more people upload stuff to Spotify and all those, your percentage goes down. And if the majority of those people are listening to like major names, those major names take up a giant portion of that pie. And even if you were to upload, then that 1 out of 600 and something minus 70% is then cut out of that big piece of pie. And so if I were to sell one hard copy, I'd make, I don't even know what that exponential purport like ratio is, you know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous, but it does come with like labor. Like it comes with me having to print my own CDs or find a platform to do that on. So like right now it's like, I'm trying to find a way, and I think I found it. I literally just printed out the plan, but like right now it's about redefining the online performance and moving more towards cinema. That's as much as I can give away.
Nice.
I'm curious, because part of the reason why I asked the three of you to be here is because you're all really taking such different approaches to building careers in music. With Damu, I feel like doing what is in some ways kind of like the most traditional, in the sense that he's built his own label to be able to do the work that Marcus was just talking about. to kind of go around the middleman, but at least that's how I see it. How do you all, how do particularly Substantial and Earl see yourselves as kind of going around that system, or in some ways working with the system that Marcus is describing? I know, Earl, you were talking to me over the summer about some projects in Germany and working with larger companies. How do you all see yourselves as working around the barriers that Marcus is describing?
Well, I would say, especially as an indie artist, it's definitely about finding a niche, carving a niche, creating a niche, identifying your niche, and then also identifying your expectations, what you want to achieve and what you're willing to do. Expectations are probably the most important thing, because, for example, you know, if you want to be the next Michael Jackson versus being an indie artist that can, you know, just have a nice, comfortable life, then the path is going to be different as far as work and exposure and some of the business and creative decisions that you have to make. So that's number one. And then once you have those expectations, then you can create the path and the plan. So looking at the best thing to do is look at where we at currently, look at the past, and then try to be as innovative and anticipate things that are taking place in the future. And especially with music and the way technology is accelerating the way we live at an extremely rapid pace, especially within the last 15 to 20 years when it comes to music. I mean, back in when my career first started in 2005, 2006, you know, CDs and records and record stores still existed. Within 2 years, Serato was created. Around 2006, Serato was created. That same year, YouTube was created, and the first iPod and MP3s and pirating and MP3s was the biggest threat to the music industry and CD sales. So, you know, now we're at a place where MP3s are irrelevant. Now we're at a place where YouTube has pretty much replaced television. So there is a balance, but tapping into what's going on, and then knowing what works for you, tapping into your audience, aside from just being a creative, because once you decide to share and publish with the world, now you have to find a way to connect with the world. So whether it's using social media, having a website, going out and street performing, you know, once things open back up, doing live in-person events and concerts and so forth, all of those things play a role. And then just to echo on what Mr. Shmoody mentioned about DSPs, there is some, that's I guess that's a, you know, gift and a curse, so to speak, because as artists and creators, we don't pick what the going rate for streaming is. There isn't this. There's not a big meeting where we're all voting to see how much an MP3 sells for. When the MP3 started, had a retail price, the industry put it on there, or the technology put the price, 99 cents, 129. But if I spend 5 months to make a song and I sell that track individually, and even a CD or a record, you know, a CD, the retail price might be $15-16, so or $20. So I guess having an understanding of how you can relate that to your bottom line, whether you have overhead, whether you can look at a place like YouTube and say, you know, a stream is worth this amount, Spotify is worth this amount, all those things add up. And at least as far as I'm concerned, although I might have been anti-streaming, anti-DSPs, looking at how that revenue comes in, it's pretty much passive, and that means you can actually meet new fans and new audience, a whole new audience, and people that are just passive listeners. And also looking at a lot of the DSPs and technology that we have access to, analytics are available at your fingertips. So when you have those expectations and you're actually looking at the numbers, you can say, oh wow, you know, when I've made a CD, I was able to reach this market, this group of people. When I'm on YouTube, I reach this, and some of those things overlap. But one thing to consider, or one thing to know about a lot of these companies like your YouTube and DSPs, although their product is entertainment, they're really data companies. So when you look at Spotify, a lot of people don't realize, or let's look at Apple Music, it's a computer company. They're using the content that we create to create revenue for themselves, and that's the mode to be able to be seen and heard as an artist. But if you were to go to jobs.com or look at all the job openings for some of the streaming platforms, most of those openings are not going to be for people that love music. They're going to be for coders and people that do development and can write algorithms and do data mining. So when you have that in mind, and then now you can actually apply that to how you publish your art, then you can say, okay, now I can build on, okay, I started with 1,000 listeners. Now I need to get to 10,000. And then from there, that creates passive income, and then build on top of that. So there's definitely, a lot of things to be aware of is how things are changing and continue to change.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to piggyback on something that you mentioned earlier, Earl, where you were talking about figuring out the path for yourself. Figuring out, what it is you want to be ultimately, whether it's pop star, indie star, and ultimately how that would determine your path. And so I knew for myself, kind of after dealing with several majors, and never signing with them, that I didn't want to, I basically let go of the idea that I was going to be a superstar doing this. But what I learned really quick from a lot of my peers was, especially as I started talking to, rest in peace to my dude, PH, my man Pumpkinhead from Brooklyn. When I talked to him and realized he had a kid, he had a wife, and we were driving the Scribble Jam, and he had no job to come back to. Rapping was his job. And I knew that he was getting burned as an independent artist, but I also knew he wasn't this huge, he wasn't a celebrity, but he was able to provide for himself, his wife, and his kid. You know what I mean? And so that was interesting to me. I was like, how can I get to the point to take care of my basic needs and my family is straight doing what I love? If I can do that, the rest, you can have the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, miss me with all of that. And so I always spend time kind of picking the brain of my peers who've been able to successfully do that over the years. And that's what helped get me to my point, this point. So to talk about streaming, shout out to another brother, my man, Funky DL, dope MC and producer based out of London. I stayed with him out in 2017. I crashed on his couch for like a week, and he just gave me gems. He was just asking me what was going on. My second child was on the way, and I told him, I was like, because I was on tour for like a month at that period of time in Europe, and I told him, I was like, man, I'm really not trying to be that guy, like doing a couple hundred shows in a year. Like, I'm not running away from my family, dog. Like, I actually like being home. I like being around my kids and my wife, and at that time, just my one kid. And so I basically asked him, because I noticed that he didn't really do more than 10 shows in a year. And when I crashed with him, he had a nice place. He, he didn't seem like he was struggling to pay bills. He seemed very comfortable. This dude treating me out to eat like every other night. I was like, man, you doing something right. So I was like, so how'd you do it? And he gave me several gems. He talked to me about the importance of owning your catalog, right? He's been making music. He never had a regular job from the age of 17 to like his early 40s. Like, he only ever did music, and this dude owns his entire catalog. So that, basically, the mindset of looking at your music as equity, right? And how, like, it can just accrue, like, just earn more and more money over time and stuff. Even if it, like, the project doesn't become huge, it still is like one of several things that add to the pot that ultimately allow you to take care of yourself and those you care about. And so he talked to me about that, and then we talked about streaming. He was like, man, seriously, he's like, I know you make beats, but you haven't really been trying to kind of push that. And he was like, people know me as a rapper, but truth of the matter is, the bulk of the money he makes is from his production. And so I was asking him, I was like, yo, like selling beats? Because I already knew how that game went. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to, I don't know if I got the patience for that. And he was like, nah, bro. Like, it's just like, I'm putting out instrumental joints. He's like, you know, he's like, I've been doing that like long before it was a thing. This brother had been doing that. And so as it became a thing, he was ahead of the curve. And so, you know, he was breaking down to me how much. He was basically saying how like his streams alone was paying his rent, paying multiple bills just off streaming before he got to physical merchandise, before he got to downloads, before we talked about show money, sync licensing, anything. The passive income that he made from streaming covered the biggest bills in his home. Wow. And so I was all ears. And so then he just talked to me about, you know, again, that ownership piece. So, you know, being able to, in a position where, like, to this day, I own roughly over 90% of my catalog. I think it's only one album in my entire catalog, which is hundreds of songs that I don't own. And so what I did was, after having the conversation with his brother, I circled back and I took control of all, like, every album that I had that was on another label, that those labels didn't own the project. I took it back. Even the one where the label did own the project, I tried my best to negotiate with them to get it back, because I knew that initial loss that of that upfront money I'd have to pay in terms of what that album would make in 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, what it's going to be making as long as these platforms exist. And that's what people don't think about. The downloads, the physical sales, they're like that one, you get that money once, right? And so it's a little bit tricky when you don't necessarily have the fan base to kind of really, you know, level up and make the most of streaming. But like, if you're a person that is already doing like a couple thousand monthly listeners, you know, and even if you're not, there's, you know, between getting your music pitched to different tastemakers, Spotify actually allows you to pitch directly to their tastemakers, which a lot of people don't know. You can do that through Spotify for artists. And so those are different things that I learned. And then in getting with a digital distributor that allowed me to do pitching, right, without me having to pay additional money. And then without having to pay them up front, I just gave them a percentage instead of me having to pay for every release. And the percentage wasn't that bad. It was less than what I was giving anybody else throughout my career. So I was like, you know, I'll go ahead and see how it goes. And it started with one track. One track landed on a major editorial playlist with millions of followers, and that track accumulated roughly over 1 million plays in a 5 to 6 month period. So that was Spotify alone. That's around $4,000, right? Now, fast forward, I've landed multiple songs on editorial playlists, but my biggest song to date has over 8 million streams. Like, you know, and that. And most of that comes from this one particular playlist that I landed on. And a lot of times you can't count on those playlists because they shuffle artists in and out of those playlists all the time. But if you're lucky enough that they keep you on there for a significant amount of time, the amount of streams that you'll get, I mean, man, you could, like, you know, $8,000 is literally more than the average salary. I mean, not $8,000, 8 million streams, the equivalent of over $30,000. That's a lot more than a person's average salary in this country in a year. You know what I mean? So, you know, like, it's just there are different ways to kind of go about it, and it doesn't mean you don't have to do something else or you don't have to do that. It's just like, what I learned was, I can do this. I can push my stuff on Bandcamp. I can make these smart URL links where I link my stuff based on value. Like, if you purchase here or stream here, I get the most money. You go here, slightly less, here, slightly less. And that's what I do. And I let the fans decide for themselves instead of me trying to dictate to them what works best for me. You know what I mean? I just I make sure I'm there wherever they are, and then I let them decide. And that's worked extremely well. And when I kind of made that shift, I literally was able to leave my job within a year. You know what I mean? And like, I haven't looked back since. So yeah, man. Yeah, I know that was super long-winded, but no,
that was a lot of good information. While you were talking, I was thinking about, like, and I'm glad you ended on, like, prioritizing like where you want people to go. Because like, now I'm thinking that, like, I don't know, there's a lot of the music that I want to do has a visual component to it, and that visual component is super important. And it's like, I don't want the I guess I'm talking a bit of an insecurity right now, is that I don't want the streaming aspect of it to take away from like the presentation of it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Sure. And like I want anybody who would be listening, and again, it gets in that game of like, okay, do you put the song out first, or do you put the video first? Do you, or the film, whatever it's going to be? Which one do you use to promote the other? And like the way you're speaking, and I like how you said like the download is a one-time thing, because if I'm going to present something, visual, generally that would be like a one-time event.
Right.
Unless I like did a different version of it, if I, you know what I mean. So like it's like literally I'm reworking how I'm going to roll stuff out right now. Like I'm not gonna, because I think I still want to get the value, and kind of going back to what the film industry kind of like that mesh is, that, you know, they release their films in theaters first. And then they drop them on Stars and sell them to HBO or whatever. And like that's kind of like the model I want to like adapt and innovate that a bit, to kind of mix it with music distribution. And almost like super, to be honest, like it's really, this is an idea I've had for a really long time, because I've always wanted to score film. So I'm just at a point where I just have to just make it. I just have to make the movie and then make the music to it. I just got to figure this, you know what I'm saying? Figure it out. So I don't know. I feel like that my last push to take this seriously was Beyonce's Black is King. And then like the Lemonade visual album before that, and then just seeing how successful it was, but how well done it was. And I know my first isn't going to be as good as Beyonce's, but like maybe my 10th, maybe my, you know, and how you were saying that like your friend got ahead of the curve doing instrumentals. I think the next turn is going to be how music is presented. Because especially like in the online space right now, like live performances, especially like in your house, are super saturated. So it's going to be like, all right, how are we going to make this, like, how are we going to go crazy with it? I'm even talking to like, there's a commission trying to put together, or like after a conversation, now we're trying to put together content to like advocate for music venues and stuff like that, because nobody can perform right now. So it's like, okay, what can we do? What kind of content can we put together that makes people miss music venues? And the only real thing we can do is like try to take people into the closed music venues. Like it's like a ghost town right now. It's scary stuff.
You know, so hey Marcus, can I jump in? So I this is a great point, because I was actually going to ask you all about the impact of the absence of venues. But I also know that there are examples of, I was listening to this story today on NPR about opera, and like how they have a very old audience, a very white audience, and very old content. But they are, as a community, working to kind of innovate how they present it, whether that is kind of mobile stages in cities. And I can't understand how come I haven't, maybe it's happened several times and I'm just trapped in my house, so I haven't seen it. Like, how come no one's reaching out to the companies that manage apartment complexes like Bozzuto and saying, hey, why don't you have me come and do a concert outside of your building, when people can just open up their balcony or open up their windows to be able to participate, doing these kind of large scale, socially distanced, paid for performances? Like, what do you all see as kind of the next way to generate revenue beyond streams in this moment for you?
Well, beyond, we're kind of going back to what I was saying about the venues. I think it's going to have to be about the music venues and the apartment complexes and all these buildings kind of mixing up what it is that they do and how they make money and what they allow in that space. Like with the orchestra, we've been in pretty unconventional spaces, even performance spaces that weren't ready for an orchestra, and the adaptation in the moment, it wasn't too crazy. Like, honestly, a space is a space. Get people back, put them in one space, 6 feet apart, and put some speakers up. And like, it's really not as difficult as a lot of businesses think it is. And I think like it's gonna have to take some convincing, especially just to even to talk to like the old venues, and not even to, this was something I thought would be really dope. Is that like, what if you could rent out a space like 930 Club or Rest in Peace U-Haul, but like totally deck out the whole venue, like create like an entire scene out of the entire venue and not just the stage. Like the next phase of this is bringing the stage to the people. And like, I think a big part of that, back to like the whole content piece, is making a cinematic experience out of your music. And like, that's what I really want to do. Like I said, printed out the plan today. And it's gonna be crazy. But in terms of like live performances, I think we're gonna miss music venues. We're gonna want to go back ASAP, but there's gonna be a part of us that wishes like we were on the moon, if that makes sense. And like, I want to satiate that. Like, I want to actually start creating those spaces. It's a time where a new space could pop up that serves those needs and would dominate. So you have a space and you need some consulting. Got 3 people here who really help you out. So yeah, no, I think that's really the next phase.
Yeah. I think like one of the most innovative things I've seen happen was with Travis Scott and Fortnite, where he did the live concert in the video game. And I know Anderson .Paak recently did something with them as well. So obviously that's that's something that's a bit more difficult for most people who don't have access to certain technology or the budget to make something like that happen. But that's a really huge market. I mean, I've done music for like a few games and stuff, and I spend a lot of time like amongst gamers and folks who are in anime, because I am. And so that's definitely, I feel like that's like for the people who are able to who have the budget to exist in that space, that isn't going anywhere anytime soon, because the response videos, like the videos of people reacting to it, like they'd never seen anything like it. And even when you see the next person do it, it's still like, yo, this is crazy. Like, this is happening live in a game where like I'm in this game playing with millions of people around the world, and we're all seeing this live performance and can kind of walk around in this virtual world and see a concert. You know what I mean? Like,
while the concert was going on, that's the craziest part. To be able to interact with the game while you're getting this crazy presentation.
Yeah. It was really, really groundbreaking, and that was exciting to witness. One thing that I think could be pitched as a new thing, but which is really an old thing, like, so you were talking about theaters earlier, and people forget that like when we would go see movies before, right? Like the words would be up on the screen, but the music was being played live, right? So like what I would kind of love to see is, and I think of spaces like National Harbor. I think of like drive-in theaters and places like that. Any place that has like a theater, that has a screen that can be put up outside so people can see visuals, and then have like musicians playing live. And it doesn't necessarily have to just be straight up instrumental. It could be a DJ like literally spinning music to and we kind of already see this at some clubs, right? But like literally saying that, hey, we're going to be featuring this particular film, and it could be an original piece, but then basically saying that the music is going to be live to that. I think that the last time I saw that was a few years ago. I went to go see all of these black and white films at Mosaic, and they had like a string orchestra that just played live throughout the joint. It was all holiday films, and it was just, yo, like my kid loved it. My wife and I thought it was dope, and that's always sat with me. Like, I always sat with that idea, like, man, I think that in this space could be really, really dope. And you could do it virtually too. You could stream, like you could gather all this footage, of you, like whether it's, like for example, me and the homies went hiking a week or so ago, and we gathered a bunch of footage. And so I put a bunch of instrumentals under that and mixed it up with us talking and stuff. But like to be able to have that footage chopped up and just set at a certain amount of time and then do a live set to it, you know what I mean? Like you know, that is a unique experience in itself, and kind of like something that people aren't necessarily thinking about doing, but could absolutely be a thing, I think, with the right footage and some dope visual effects, you know.
Yo, shout out to the homie Two Tone Jones and the Shaolin Jazz crew for Can I Kick It?
Yeah.
Speaking of local legends, I'm sorry, Earl, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Two Tone's my guy. I love that brother. And Gerald, love those guys. Shaolin Jazz, definitely. But just to add on to what both of my co-panelists said, I mean, there's no right or wrong solution or idea. Whether you revisit an idea that already exists, or whether you're able to innovate something completely fresh and that doesn't exist. But I guess the most important thing is not limiting yourself, and pretty much just being open-minded to put yourself in different spaces. So and also evolving as a creator. So when I was 13 or 14, when I got into making hip hop or making music, that was I had a very narrow idea of what that included. Okay, I write raps and I'm supposed to write a verse, and then that evolved to, okay, I got to learn how to write a song. I have to learn how to make beats. I need to learn how to, and that evolved. And then I got good in that space. But now, beyond just being a creator that just focuses on one lane, going into film, meeting other people, collaborating in different spaces. I know Substantial said earlier that he found himself in spaces that where he was the only rapper, and that's actually good, because now you get to put yourself and collaborate with in other spaces that allow you to stand out and allow you to have ideas that you can innovate going forward. But another thing to add is that I guess you don't have to be a jack of all trades, but as far as being willing to wear several hats, whether you have a business, whether you're just whether you're an artist, you're a business person, you know how to do graphic design, you learn how to edit videos. That's the artists of the 21st century. You know, even on a major label, they're looking for artists that are multi-dimensional creators that will exist and do well in several different spaces. And even look at athletes now. You know, they may be known on the field, but when the game's not happening, people are going to their Twitter. People are looking for their endorsements. People are looking for their opinions on things, whether they're actually performing what their careers is based on. So being open to expand yourself beyond whatever your main focus is really the thing that's going to put you in that space to create something new and actually get to the next level, whatever that is.
That's right. Yeah, I think a great, I've met several, and I love what you said about not having to be a jack of all trades, or as I like to say, a black of all trades, but accepting the fact that you are going to have to know how to do more than the one thing you do. Like, there's kind of no way of getting around that, right? Because whatever you don't know how to do yourself, if you have to do it, like in some way, shape, or form, if you can't do it, that means you got to pay someone else to do it. And so at least having a basic understanding is going to increase your value bare minimum, right? But then also looking at like the Harlem Renaissance and so many great artists and creatives that came before us, and they weren't these one-dimensional artists. They weren't they weren't just good at the one thing. That's why like Gordon Parks is one of my favorite, man, because the dude was an amazing photographer. He was, a film director. This dude wrote like symphonies, you know what I mean? Like books, like, bruh, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know a lot about Gordon Parks, but I'm about to look him up ASAP.
Hey.
That's a must. You've heard of Shaft, right? Have you heard of Shaft, the Learning Tree?
Yeah.
You've probably seen a lot of his photos.
Yeah.
He's an artist, right? And I mean a true renaissance, man. But But yeah, there's definitely some special individuals throughout history. Gordon Parks is one of them, Sammy Davis Jr. But that adopting that those skill sets, you know, and having several and having an understanding is really going to help you get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask a quick question? So Substantial mentioned that he went to Suitland High School, which is a performing arts school. The conversation yesterday revolved around the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, Howard University, and U Street as kind of being primarily responsible for the development of kind of hip hop theater as a form in Washington, D.C. I wonder what role each of you think school, your K through 12 education, or your university education played in impacting how you understand what's possible for you as a musician.
I think I was blessed musically in terms of my experiences in school. Grade school, I was in the orchestra 3rd grade all the way through 11th. And then my orchestra teacher, who was teaching us in middle school and high school, was like, hey, I'm going to another school, like my senior year before, like the last day of junior year. And we were just like, oh, man. But he actually called me into the office and he was just like, look, man, you can't quit. Because he knew it in my face. I was going to quit. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But he was just like, you can't. Because you have too much fun with, like, you actually love being here. And not everyone here loves being here. So we need somebody, we need as many people who love doing this as possible in this room. And you're one of the main ones. And I think from that conversation on, because I really respected this man, from that conversation on, I made sure that if I was the one who cared the most about the project, or if I was doing it, period, then I had to be the one to be able to communicate everything that had to do with this project. Kind of piggybacking on Substantial's point, just being open to it. So that was grade school. I was given a lot of power. I was asked to conduct the orchestra during warm-ups when my teacher had to do something. So I was put in these positions to experience things I didn't even know I wanted to do or would be doing in the next couple of years. Fast forward college, the diversity of it was a sham. I'm just going to say that straight up. I went to UMD, was promoted, you know, fearless. I think the diversity was a bit of a sham. I didn't find the group of people that were so diverse, kind of like my hometown group of friends. I'm from Columbia, Maryland. It's literally built for diversity in very small pockets. But so college, I was actually hit my first real bout of depression, noticeable, acknowledgeable, and my GPA was probably like 1.8, and then I was like, wait, there's nothing here that I care about. Like, I love all my friends and everything, but I'm not doing anything that I seriously care about. And it was music again that just popped up. But the orchestra, I'm sorry, wasn't trying to play that music again. The club orchestras, big bodies, not great sound. And I was just like, all right, I just got to do it. Just got to do it again. I got to start it. Because if I don't do this, I'm going to drop out. So I created the group. And luckily, a lot of my close friends at the time were musicians. So I was just like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. You want to play with me? And they're like, yeah, man, whatever. We're not doing anything else. We're just done. And I was like, all right, cool. So luckily, it was just my friends and a bunch of people just hanging out, and we just did music. And then it turned into a club. We registered. And then out of nowhere, we were applying for Battle of the Bands. And we'd be, as an orchestra, we'd be like a reggae band and a rock band. And the first time we actually got beat by a Jewish beatboxer by the name of Orthodox. That was hard.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
That was hard, but he was tight. But I was like, man. So I've had a lot of really awesome experiences in college. The last one in school was opening up for T-Pain and Lil Dicky for the Art Attack because we won the Battle of the Bands. And so I was really thrusted into the position in grade school, and college gave me the opportunity to like execute for free. Didn't spend any money aside from, you know, transportation and whatever. But I basically built an orchestra out of pocket for free with the homies. And now we're a full-fledged like business. We have our first deal with a Fortune 500 company that I'll be on the phone with tomorrow, hopefully to close. So it's like the seed is very important. Grade school is very important as a seed. And I know some people don't start doing music until they're like 50 and they become a savant out of nowhere. Cool. But like, it's incredibly important for everybody else who may not know or who do know, and they just don't have the support or the resources to just be given the opportunity to try. Because if I was never thrusted into that position to conduct during warm-ups, period, I feel like just that one thing, I would have been too scared to do any of this. So yeah, grade school is super important. Give these kids a chance. Just let them do the thing that they just might not, just let them do the thing.
Hey, Substantial, Earl, before we jump into school, I just want to give you one more question, particularly for you two, that's built on this school one, which is, can you talk a little bit about the importance of the teams you've built to maintain the work that you're doing as companies, specifically Substantial and Earl, with this last 7 minutes of the discussion?
Okay. Well, in case I forget that question, remind me. It's because I don't want to forget. It's working with the teams. But to follow up, Mr. Shmoody, as far as I guess education playing a role in my journey, in I guess my profession, I guess I have to backtrack. But for starters, I have to say this is why organizations and people like Mazi are very important. Words, Beats, and Life is a very important organization because when I was in school, over 20 something years ago, in grade school, well, number one, hip hop was not an accessible art form to the point that, you could tell somebody and say, hey, I'm going to be a rapper, or hey, I'm going to be a DJ, or hey, I make beats. It was, well, what is that? You would be the only rapper, or you would be the only person pursuing music, and it was a very rare occasion, especially in this area, where you would find like-minded individuals that actually wanted to make beats and DJ and rhyme. You were very rare at that time. And then you're also coming off the heels of how I guess the school system was changing. They were taking arts out of the schools, cutting the budgets, the special programs, and so to speak. So a lot has changed, and a lot. Especially we owe a lot of that to technology as of late, because hip hop and music creation and creativity is more of a consumer product than back then. So if you wanted to be a photographer, you wanted to be an auto mechanic, you wanted to edit videos, you really had to go to like a trade school or find an apprentice, a mentor. If you wanted to make beats, you had to literally go and buy books. And whereas like now you have that access on your phone. If you want to be a video editor, the next Steven Spielberg, you can do it from your iPhone. And our devices allow us to come up with the concepts, refine our ideas, finish them, and publish them all from the same device. So a lot of the way that the music is created, the way that art is created, a lot of it is done by technology. So when I was younger, I didn't know that I was going to become a hip hop musician. But when I discovered that it was something that I was good at and I was passionate about, when I went and said, hey, I'm a beat maker, and somebody says, well, what is that? Well, there's a box, there's a machine, it has buttons, and you can sample and you can do this, and I take records, whereas that nobody really understood that. Now, fast forward, a kid might say, I'm going to make beats. Oh, you do what Dr. Dre does. Oh, you do what Kanye West does. Oh, you're a DJ. You do what Jazzy Jeff does. So the evolution of where we are now is just in a much better place to nurture someone's interest in specifically hip hop in regards to, or in contrast to, playing a music instrument, or I'm playing an instrument, being in an orchestra or a band. But as far as my professional journey, it started maybe when I was in high school. Actually, I had an internship where I got to work at a radio station, and shout out to my mentor, Kyle Murdoch. I know Substantial knows my brother. Actually going to a radio station, he was working as a channel producer, and just being in that environment, that creative environment, showed me that, oh wow, you know, I wanted my concept of being a musician was having a record deal, being on TV and the radio and being a star, but going there and seeing things behind the scenes. Wow, this is a creative group of people that are not famous. They come here every day and they make money. They work music. They're passionate about this stuff. I can talk to them about ultramagnetic MCs or go and have a discussion about Ahmad Jamal or Wu-Tang. And it's like, wow, people actually do this for a living. Then I need to find a way to do this. So just having that exposure, you know, and the education goes beyond being in the school system. It's really about how people are exposed. So it's like we live in a great time where we have access to the information, and we have the YouTube and playback button where we can literally go back and do all of this research. And with an organization like Words, Beats, and Life that really is bringing hip hop, you know, in a scholastic sense, and actually explaining and also making it available to youth where they can have an understanding of the foundation and fundamentals as a culture, as an art, and being educated. That wasn't around back then, but it really adds to the climate of where we're at now. And then as far as teams, you definitely want to have good chemistry with people that you work with. And you, I guess I would compare it to a good relationship or good partnership is like a marriage. You're gonna have fights, you're gonna have disagreements, but the passion and the end result is always gonna be for the greater good. So, when I've found people whether it's people that make beats or rhyme or artists to work with or graphic designers, it's really about the chemistry and just starting an experience that leads to others. And if those things work well, then that's the best part about my job, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up. Yeah, man, definitely. You know, the importance of building your team is, I mean, it's essential. I feel like a lot of folks I've come across over the years, you know, have, I think, undervalue sometimes the people closest to them. They oftentimes, when they are trying to kind of get on, look to people who are like already established and have their own team, have their own family they're working with. And they kind of look to them to kind of fix their problems or help them get on. You know, if you look at almost any great artist, any person that does this, and look how they got their start, and read the credits, right? Go into some of those liner notes and see some of the names that are in there, who their producers were, who their you know, some of the writers were, who some of the management, all of these different people. A good amount of these folks are people they got their start with, that they had been working with for years, like, you know, like whether they were teens or young adults or whatever, but they have some type of history. And so I find that it's best to keep people around you, or work with people who believe in what you're doing the way they believe in themselves, right? Or the way they believe in other things that they hold high and value. I'll never forget, man, and it's crazy. Me and this brother, like, we don't chat as much these days, you know what I mean? But like, and that's, you know, that's a natural part of any relationship. But you know, people sometimes grow apart. But I'll never forget one of the strongest things that one of the homies ever said about what it was like working with me was, and, you know, and I never knew he saw me like this, but he basically was like, yo, if Stan hits me up and says, yo, let's build a rocket ship, he's like, he basically said, I'm gonna hit him back and say, when do we start? It's like, he basically is saying that, like, yo, you know, this dude, no matter what it is that I come to him with, he knows that I'm coming to him with because I believe that we can do it, and I'm gonna work like hell to get it done. And so to have somebody, like, have people in your corner like that is extremely important. And you know, I'm blessed. One of the things I'm learning right now, because my company, like I said, is co-owned by myself and my wife. And you know, and every time we tell people that, you'd be surprised. Like 90% of people's response is usually, "Oh my God, I could never work with my spouse." Like, that's what most people say. And and I try not to judge people's relationships, but the reason why it works so well for us is one, we're both creatives, and we respect each other's processes. We understand how the business around being a creative works, and so some of the pressures that a creative has in a relationship with someone, whether it's a business partner or a couple, the pressures that you have from someone who is not a creative and does not understand that field, and doesn't understand that sometimes you get paid twice a year for certain things. Other times you get paid quarterly. Sometimes you get paid once a month, but it's rarely every 2 weeks, right? So being with somebody who understands that, but then also being with somebody who, because of the fact that we've been together over 20 plus years, right? And been married, for most of that. I know I can always be honest, and I know when they give me feedback, when she gives me feedback on something, I know it's the truth. I never have to question whether or not she's trying to worry about my feelings or any of these different things, because I'm with her, because she's been this brutally honest person, even when I ain't wanted to be. So you know what I'm saying? So so she's the core part of my team, but even how we're raising our kids, you know what I mean? My oldest daughter, who's now 12, she understands that this isn't mommy and daddy's business. This is our business, right? Like, this is our business. Like, this company is hers if we decide to step away, you know what I mean? And so, when we do events and different things, like the role she plays, even when she was younger than she is now, understanding the importance of team, understanding the importance of us working toward one common goal, and then us being supportive as well. And what her endeavors are, understanding that part of being a part of that team is also meaning that it's great that they're helping you attain, reach this one particular goal, which may be the main thing you want to do, but taking time to talk to the team and figure out what are the things they want to see happen. And then making sure you invest that time back in them to make their dreams a reality, or make the things they believe in the most, putting them on, putting them in the forefront as well whenever possible. So,
Sorry to go over, but you just reminded me of one thing that I want to add. I'll try to make it quick, but there's always someone passionate about something. Meaning, if you hate stuff in envelopes, but that's part of your job, there's somebody that loves doing that. So when building your team, try to find people that are passionate about those jobs that you don't necessarily want to do. Respect those jobs, but as far as building a great team, finding people that are passionate, that are going to fill those seats, that also are going to be good to work with.
Word.
Real quick, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to give a quick shout out to Polar Knights, who left a comment that said that this is an epic cam setup. It's like the evolution of beards. So keep making amazing music, keep inspiring the people that are around you, and keep building amazing teams. Thanks so much for joining us for night 2. For those of you that are going to be here with us for a little bit longer, stay tuned for DJ One Love, who's going to be spinning immediately after this. Guys, you want to give out your socials real quick?
Sure. Was it IG? Was it Substantial Music? It's Substantial Music across most platforms except Twitter. Is I Am Substantial. All right.
Redefinitionrecords.com, and at Damu the Fudgemunk, and at Redefinition short, at Redef Records.
And you can find me just on Instagram right now, at Mr. Shmoody, and spell out Mr. Mister Shmoody all the way through. And say what's up. I'm pretty funny.
Thanks so much, fellas. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please feel free to share this video, especially with a young aspiring musician in your life. We believe that the gems dropped by these brothers are going to be useful to just about everybody. If you're wondering, this week we're doing panels. Next week we're actually doing concerts, kicking off with our good friend Substantial. here's a quick reminder.
Substantial address none. Baltimore resident, but people know I'm from the county where the prince is the G. It's no wonder that even in the dead of winter, the block is live as summer wind.
All right, y'all.